Don't wake the mummy. Chapter 1. To speak the name of the dead is to make them live again, the tour guide whispered ominously. The class giggled at what they thought to be just another stage part of the tour. Throughout the tomb, he continued, and especially when we enter the burial chamber, we must refer to the mummy as the king, or Pharaoh. Is that understood? The group members nodded their agreement as they quickly realized this was not another superstition. I knew the guide had been telling the truth because I had read about it on the internet in preparation for our class trip. Now here we are in Egypt, inside an actual pyramid, on our way down to the burial chamber to look at an actual mummy. Come along, children, step lively, Miss Crabwalk's shrill voice rose above the noise, and everyone evidently started to file out of the ritual shaft in pairs. Everyone except for Simon. I found him at the back of the room, trying to decipher the hieroglyphics on the wall. Simon, Monsieur, what would you not do without me? I teased. Honestly, sometimes I think you actually want to get left behind. He didn't care. He was curious about everything, and he wasn't happy unless he had a problem to solve. Amy, look, I figured out what this means, Simon said. I glanced back and checked the progress of the quiz. Only half of the group had filled out of the room, so I figured that we had a couple of minutes left. I definitely wanted to hear what Simon had found out, but I absolutely did not want to get in trouble with Miss Crabwalk. It says here what they pulled the mummy's brains out through its nose. Simon grinned at the grossness of it all. The guide hadn't mentioned any of the details Simon was describing. I guess the guide thought it would be too scary for our 4th grade class. I had to admit, it was pretty revolting, yet I found myself listening to Simon translate the entire mummification process. Yuck. I wrinkled my face in disgust, turning away from the last picture on the wall just in time to see the last 2 students leaving the chamber. My revulsion was quickly replaced by my need to stay out of trouble, so I grabbed Simon by the shirt and dragged him toward the door. Waited for Miss Crabwalk to turn the other way, and then we successfully slipped into the back of the line. Our classmates stomped and chattered their way up a wide flight of stairs, down a narrow corridor, and into the next chamber. Simon stopped to inspect every insect and object that crossed our path. I had to drag him back to the line at least 3 times. Finally, we all crowded into a room where the walls were covered with images of the pharaoh and several gods. The guide motioned for everyone to gather around one of the images. He launched into an explanation of the relationship between the pharaoh and his people and how the pharaoh was connected to the gods. Of course, I already knew this story, but it was 100 times more fascinating listening to it while looking at the actual hieroglyphics on the walls than reading about it in school. Simon, however, did not find it as interesting as I did and had decided to translate his own story. He stayed close enough to the group, so I decided to leave him alone. The guide finished his narrative on the life of the pharaoh and made his way to the back of the room. He paused in the doorway and called for everyone's attention. Before us is the burial chamber where the mummy of the great king lies. The room went completely silent. The guide had captured everyone's interest, even Simon's. "Enter if you dare," he shouted and then disappeared into the darkness of the burial chamber. Simon and I agreed it was all very theatrical, but pretty cool. We joined the line and walked single file into the tomb. Exclamations of surprise echoed around the chamber as the red sarcophagus came into our view. This room was much smaller than the rest, and we all crowded around, smashing elbows to get a closer view as the guide slowly raised the lid to reveal the full-sized mummy inside. Shrieks arose from a group of girls who scooted to the back, vacating prime space in front. Simon and I squeezed our way toward the sarcophagus and looked in at the mummy. A group of boys eagerly pushed themselves between us. I held my spot as long as I could, but there was just too much shoving. I finally managed to squeeze my way out of the tightly packed mass of bodies and went looking for Simon. He was sitting in the corner reading an ancient-looking book filled with hundreds of illustrations. I peered over his shoulder at page after page of strange pictures of pharaohs in the boats and journeys to mystery places. Chapter 2. Where are they going? I asked. "I'm working on it," Simon mumbled. "But I think they're traveling in the underworld." I glanced over my shoulder to check on the others and saw they had already left the tomb. I jumped up and in a panic and ran to the next room. Everyone's gone, Simon, I shouted from there. I ran back to the burial chamber to get him. Simon, come on, we are going to get in trouble with Miss Crabbuck. He didn't even look at me. Impatiently, I stumped over and grabbed his arm. I figured it out, he shouted. The picture relates the journey that King Amenhotep II took in some sort of solar-powered boat on his way to the sun god. I dropped his arm and felt the look of horror spread over my face. Simon was immediately apologetic. I'm sorry, Amy. I didn't mean to keep us here so long. Don't worry, maybe Miss Crabwood won't notice our absence if we hurry. You said his name, I whispered. Whose name? Do you mean King Amenhotep? Shh, stop saying it. Don't you know that if you speak the name of the dead, you make them live again? His eyes widened with comprehension. Oh no, I forgot. He slapped his forehead with the palm of his hand. How could I be so stupid? I read about that, and it even mentions it here in this book. Simon said as he fumbled with the book. It flipped out of his hands and landed with a thud. We both looked at the book lying on the dirt floor near the closed sarcophagus in front of us, but for an entire minute we didn't breathe or blink. But nothing happened. I guess it really is just superstition, I said with a sigh of relief. We headed for the door. Chapter 3. Then a low scraping noise stopped us in our tracks. We turned back and watched in horror as the mummy slowly opened the lid of the red sarcophagus. This can't be happening. We both squeaked at the same time. I felt as if my feet had grown roots and fastened me to the ground. Oh, we are going to get in so much trouble, I moaned. How are we going to solve this problem? The book, Simon exclaimed and ran back into the room to get it. The sarcophagus was not completely open, and the mummy slowly sat up. He was directly between Simon and the doorway. Simon was trapped. Over here, I yelled, distracting the mummy enough for Simon to escape. He grabbed the book and ran right by the mummy, pulling me out the door after him. We sped down the stairs and hid behind one of the pillars at the far end of the next room. My heart was beating so fast I could barely speak. What are we going to do now? I guessed. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. Just keep an eye out for the mummy while I search this book for answers, he said. So I crouched down and peeked out from behind the pillars, waiting for the mummy to find us. I think I found something, he whispered. But it was too late. The mummy had entered the room and was coming down the stairs toward us. Save it for later. We have to get out of here now, I insisted, yanking Simon up by the back of his collar and rushing him out of the chamber into the long, narrow corridor. I don't think he saw us, I whispered, but I had spoken too soon. The mummy had entered the corridor and was heading toward us. We made a dash for the next chamber and hid behind another pillar in the back of the room. I resumed guard duty and kept an eye on the door. Simon quickly flipped through the pages of the book, frantically trying to locate the answers he had just found. "Darn it," he shouted. "There's a page missing from this book. This picture only tells us what happens after they make him a mummy. But I know I've seen the picture. We need somewhere." Chapter 4. Simon mumbled